Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the School Safety Pre-Period. I'm Amanda Klinger.
And I'm Dr. Amy Klinger.
And we're with the Educators School Safety Network. We're a national nonprofit organization and we provide school safety training and resources and technical assistance. But when we're feeling a little bit less academic and we're feeling a little bit less scholarly and we're a little less serious.
Or maybe just the subject warrants it.
Yeah. We have our School Safety Free Period, where we talk about outrageous, outlandish, sometimes too stupid to be true, but they are always true stories. And we talk about them and we poke a little fun, typically. We have a few laughs, but then we do have a few takeaways, and we do end up having some teachable moments in the humor.
We go from the ridiculous to the sublime.
What?
You were clearing your throat. You missed it. The ridiculous to the sublime.
Oh, no, I heard you. I didn't get it, but okay. So, I feel like most of the time you tell me stories, but I have one for you this time. And
keep in mind the way that the podcast works is one of us has something that has happened that we bring to share to the other, and the other person, the storyteller, has not told the story receiver about it. So you get to hear our unvarnished reaction as well.
The story receiver, also known as the listener.
Or the listener, yes.
Could you maybe think of like 19 more words to explain that? Okay.
The listener are the people that are listening. The story receiver is the person that's getting it to talk about it.
The speaker of the words in a narrative format, also known as a storyteller. Anyway, it is important to note that this is fall time.
Also known as autumn, fall time.
Well, it is the time of the year known as autumn or fall. Sometimes I will listen to podcasts out of order, or I'll go back and listen to old episodes. And sometimes I'm always curious, like, well, when was this what they were talking about? So it's important for you to know that this is a fall-themed episode today.
Even if you're not listening to it in the fall.
Even if you're not in fall time, we're in fall time. So that's why...
I'm in autumn. You're in fall time.
Yeah, I'm in fall time. So, this is a school outside of Baltimore. And here's the scene. They have a smell. The smell is on the 3rd floor. Students and teachers don't know what to do. Here's the quote.
What's it smell like?
That's the big reveal. The quote from the principal: "It was a smell that they certainly weren't used to. And it appeared to be getting stronger."
It was the smell of knowledge?
It was a smell. And
wait, what kind of a school is this?
High school.
It's a high school. Well, then it could be any smell.
The smell is getting worse. People don't know what to do. Several students and teachers start reporting difficulty breathing. The principal...
And it was lunch. That was the smell?
No. The principal was not there, but they call the principal, and the principal makes the decision.
Because that is what always happens.
I
can tell you
as
a principal, nothing goes wrong until the minute that you walk out of the building, and then everyone loses their mind and does something stupid.
So people are getting sick. There's the smell. People don't know what to do.
The smell of the missing principal.
So the principal says, call the fire department. They call the fire department. The fire department
can diagnose the smell?
Also, there's this smell. People don't know what to do. People are getting sick. So they call the hazmat team. So the hazmat team comes and they run several tests for hazardous materials. All the tests come back negative, meaning there are not hazardous materials.
And the smell's on the 3rd floor?
3rd floor.
Did anyone walk up there and poke around?
I don't have information about that.
Okay.
They took 2 students and 3 adults to the hospital because of bad smell sickness. Because there was no actual literal...
Any new parents currently listening can think about bad smell sickness.
Bad smell sickness. So they determined there's no actual hazardous materials. So the firefighters open all the windows to air the building out. Then they find out the source of the smell in the 3rd floor classroom. Are you ready for this?
Do I get to guess?
Yeah.
A pumpkin.
Yes!
Really?
It was an aerosol plug-in, a pumpkin spice aerosol plug-in.
See, I told you pumpkins are nasty. No one likes the smell of pumpkins.
So it was not. I thought you were going to guess.
Okay, well, wait a minute.
Someone's old gross lunch, like when my younger sister
I was
left
gonna
her
say, that's
old gross lunch.
that was a hazmat situation
in her
right
locker
there.
over Easter break. And
No, it was over Christmas break. They
gosh.
ended up having to
burn the school down.
No, they ended up having to take everything out and clean it out because it all smelled so bad, and then it ended up being one of my children's cheese sandwich molding in their locker
For 3 weeks.
Yep, there you go.
Yikes.
So there you go.
So no, it was pumpkin
But
spice.
hold on. So wouldn't the person that plugged in the pumpkin spice aerosol thing be like, oh, smelling bad people getting sick? No problem. I'll just go unplug this thing. I mean, how do you not know what the smell is and what the thing is you plugged in?
I don't know. The principal says there was no danger, but it's better safe than sorry. Classes resumed on Friday because they had evacuated. I mean, they
evacuated the building.
They called the hazmat team. Why don't you kids sit in your chairs and just see if it's negative or positive from the hazmat team? And the school posted something on their website noting that a counselor would be available to talk with students about the event. If you have pumpkin spice induced trauma, we're here for you.
A counselor was being available because... So the counselor was going to laugh with them about how ridiculous it was? Or is that not counseling?
Okay, but to be fair, and I've talked about this before, when you have an event in your school, whether it's the walking class, walking away from the school.
Wait. Why didn't the article say who it was that was the idiot that plugged in the aerosol thing?
Probably because it was a lighthearted...
All of this smelly stuff... We don't need it. We don't need smelly things hanging in our car. We don't need smelly things plugged into the wall. We don't need smelly things in candles, smelling up things, because one man's fragrance is another man's bad smell sickness, as illustrated. I wonder what they did for him in the hospital.
I don't know.
Put vanilla under there. Let him smell vanilla.
Do you want cinnamon instead? You don't like pumpkin
spice? Oh my God,
spice.
cinnamon would be worse.
So there you go. So, pumpkin spice.
Okay, but now in the podcast, you're supposed to be able to
have a takeaway.
A takeaway.
Well, I started to say a takeaway before, which
takeaway is we don't need these bad smelling things.
That was your takeaway. My other takeaway is that we laugh and snicker at the notion of you're going to have counselors for that, but if people were getting sick, which, maybe some of that was the power of suggestion, but okay, if people are getting sick and you call the hazmat team, that is potentially scary. Now, hopefully you would think that high school kids would have the resilience to sort of bounce back from that, but you can't completely discount the notion of we don't know what's going on. We have this caustic odor. People are getting sick.
It doesn't say caustic, it said bad smell.
Okay,
which brings the point of there are a lot of bad smells in a high school. If you've smelled...
Or in a middle school,
oh my God, there's a lot of bad smells.
A middle school teacher. Oof.
So how is it that it is so bad that no one, the person that plugged it in doesn't go, that smells like pumpkins. So it didn't smell like pumpkin. It smelled... So was it and I have this vision of a plug-in thing that's like the size of a bucket that's just churning out.
It was a 55-gallon drum.
Yeah, that's just churning out clouds of pumpkin spice for you to be able to smell it all over the building. That doesn't seem possible.
Well, I don't have a ton of details because it was a fluff piece in the Baltimore Sun, about pumpkin spice latte or pumpkin spice shutting down a school, which... Yikes. I felt like was appropriate for this podcast, but I don't have a ton more details about it for you.
Well, so I guess that I'll give you the takeaway. The takeaway is go upstairs and sniff around when you find out there's a bad smell. Prior to calling hazmat in the fire department, somebody go up and sniff around.
Okay, but I will push back on that. The information is there is this caustic smell and people are getting sick.
Caustic is your word. Okay, but caustic is not in that thing.
They transported
pumpkin spice is not a caustic smell.
Okay, but they transported 3 people and tons of people were reporting respiratory distress. So it wasn't people were going PU, and then no one felt like they could investigate. Okay. I mean, obviously
how do you get enough pumpkin spice smell to cause respiratory distress?
I'm just saying if they were willing to transport 3 people to the hospital. No, it was two students and 3 adults. If they're transporting 5
people... Are they allergic
people,
to pumpkin?
I don't know, but they transported 5 people to the hospital. So it wasn't just ew, it's a bad smell. I don't even care. I don't want to look. So if it's an unknown, I mean, we laugh and joke because it was pumpkin spice. What if it was something in the chemistry lab, something that had been stored incorrectly, and there was this crazy chemical reaction, and there was caustic gas
That smelled like
in the
pumpkin
air?
spice?
No, but if there was caustic gas in the air, are you going to tell people to march up to the 3rd floor and poke around? So,
Not everyone. Just
so I
right.
think I'm going to push back on your takeaway and say that I think they did the right thing. Now, it is absurd that it turns out that it was just a pumpkin spice plug-in. And so why were these many people getting sick? Maybe it was a bad one, or
I'm just saying that is
product.
one overachieving plug-in that you can smell up the
And send-
entire high school.
And send 5 people to the hospital.
People to the hospital.
So
Wonder
there you go.
if the people that make that, I'm not going to name the brand, or is that going to be like their new? It's going to be like their new advertising slogan. So powerful, it'll cause respiratory distress.
So powerful, you'll have to evacuate a high school.
Okay.
Well, there you go. So,
Okay.
you
so,
have one for me now?
Yeah, I have one for you that is also smelly.
I'm going to make fun of yours.
we're gonna
I feel like
do
you made
smell.
fun. I thought mine was funny and delightful,
is
and you
funny.
made fun of me,
It is
and I'm going to make fun of yours.
You're just mad that I guessed that it was a pumpkin.
No,
I thought it was going to be like a, rotten pumpkin, not pumpkin spice. So, okay, so mine is an international flavor. Mm-hmm. This takes place in South Africa.
Not fall time specific.
Not fall time, but it is
not fall
South
time
Africa.
specific. Okay.
So we have, for whatever reason, right now it's the end of the school year celebration in South Africa.
Probably because it's the end of their school
Yeah,
year.
I mean, I don't really know that much about it, but it is. So it's the end of the year. Yay! So we have a high school, pupils aged between 14 and 20. The end of the year festivities went south. Get it? South Africa. The students went on a rampage and were stoning the teachers' cars. They threw condoms filled with urine and excrement at the school building.
What?
Yeah. They ended up with the riot police. The crowd was engaging in unruly behavior. Management and staff confirmed to the police that the crowd consisted of people that were graduating. So their graduation celebration went a little bit south. So they were throwing stuff at the teachers, at the cars, at the building. So eventually the police were able to bring it under control and they arrested 34 pupils.
Do you just have a Google alert of like ill-informed senior pranks? Is
I
that
don't
like how
know.
you just keep finding
I don't know if
these?
this was a senior prank or if this was just school is out. So here's what I think is kind of interesting. The spokesman for the Department of Education says, "We have found that this is a culture at the school. This is disturbing. We are awaiting reports from the school in this regard. We want to know how the school has allowed this to happen. We want it to stop." So I'm not sure what the culture is of the school. We have a culture that fills up condoms with excrement, and so that was kind of interesting. However, again, this person from the Department of Education goes on to say that they wanted to ensure, so they ended up arresting 34 students.
Sheesh.
Yeah, so they got to get it under control. They're having a riot, essentially. So they have this riot. They arrest 34 people.
Senior riot.
Yeah, so they have a senior riot. They arrest 34 people. But what struck me is very funny is the spokesman from the Department of Education condemns the behavior and so on. And then adds, they want to ensure that the pupils who are in custody are released in order to prepare for their final examinations.
What?
Yeah.
They hadn't even taken finals yet?
Yeah.
So a little pre
He wanted to ensure that the pupils in custody are released in order to prepare for the final examinations. And here's the quote, "Please, regardless of the disciplinary measures to be taken, these pupils still need to write their exams." With that said, this does not mean they will not be disciplined accordingly.
Weren't they?
So
maybe
you
they were-
lose your mind at the end of the school year. You are stoning the teachers' cars, throwing stuff at the police, at the building, having a riot, and then at the end, as they arrest you, go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've got exams, got to study for exams." So yeah, so they were willing to accommodate them to make sure they were released in time to study.
So they were a little preemptive on their senior riot,
Well,
because I would think you'd have your senior riot after you already took your exams.
I don't know.
One would assume.
I don't know. But it's a delightful headline. It says KZN, which is the name of the province. KZN police arrest 34 poo-slinging pupils. Is exactly the...
That's journalism.
Yep,
I like
there
it.
you go. Okay. So I don't have a takeaway from that at all.
Let's hear the takeaway for this one.
Really, if I'm going to try to be serious, the only thing that is the takeaway that kind of is funny, but yet it's also very frustrating for me, is when you have these kids that are just doing ridiculous behavior, and then under the guise of, "Oh, I'm kidding," or "We were just having fun," or and we've talked about that in some of our past episodes of people doing ridiculous things and then trying to hide behind we're just seniors and it's okay if we act this way. So I mean, I had to say I was a little bit shocked when I saw it that, holy smoke, this is what you're doing for your kind of puts the pranks to shame, I guess. I didn't realize a riot was the way to go, but
well, you do sort of wonder when they say that this was a culture at the school.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing. That
I don't want
say it
to
that way.
necessarily victim blame the school, because the school is sort of the victim, as it were, in this situation. But you do sort of have to wonder: was something like this, maybe not this serious?
Well,
maybe not a full-scale riot, but like a half riot.
Clearly, you don't have a strong affinity for your school if you're willing to sling condoms filled with excrement at the school.
There's that, but I guess what I'm saying is when you sort of look at this when you read the cases about hazing, where it's like, well, this has always sort of happened, and the school has always sort of turned a blind eye to it, and so you have to sort of wonder. So last year, did they do something that was like pretty bad, but not quite this bad? And so is this, is it just that this made the news because 34 people got arrested because they finally tipped over a line?
Well, and it is interesting that we want to know how the school has allowed this to happen. I mean, so there's two ways to look at that. Is the school, like you said, this sort of benign neglect letting this stuff happen, or is this someone from the government trying to throw the school under the bus, that, the school should not have allowed this to happen? I'm not sure what you're going to do when you have your entire, senior class out rioting in the street. I'm not quite sure what you think exactly the school's going to do about it at that point.
That school-issued tear gas, they issue it to the new teachers.
Also, just to keep you informed as to the whole scope of it, they also had death threats against the teachers, and the school had a bomb threat.
All as part of the end of the year festivities. Wow. It's like the next step after a dunk tank. The dunk tank wasn't available for rent on that day, so they thought instead we'll just call in death threats, bomb threats, and have a literal riot.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, okay, so there you have it.
No takeaways from either thing.
No, just sort of like agape mouths.
Don't
apparently
have a riot, and don't plug in those air fresheners. Here's the advice.
Have naturally occurring bad smells in your school.
But I guess the overarching theme here is, don't think this stuff's not going to happen, because it does. Yeah. I mean, there's always those strange situations.
Yeah. Well, so there you go. Please do rate, review, and subscribe. It's really helpful for us if you write a comment. It's helpful for us to sort of hear feedback from folks. But if you rate and review on iTunes especially, it really helps us be able to get in front of more viewers or listeners, I guess. And so please do that. If you have a too absurd to be true, but actually is true tale, you can send that to us. info@eschoolsafety.org is the email address. It's our website, eschoolsafety.org. We have tons of information and free resources and information about the work that we do and trainings that we provide. And we always love to hear from our listeners, even if you have, questions or comments or concerns or a cool story that we should talk about. So there you have it. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.